And so he starts doing E. He says, go E, make an E sound and it'll help. And I was, wow, this guy cares. He has a suggestion and knows how bad he wants to help. This is guy better and better. So he's doing, son, we're gonna shoot you up with Botox, shoot your throat, and you'll have no voice for a week, and then it'll come back and have a voice. And I was totally in his hands. So anyway, long story short, 3 weeks, still no voice. Not only is my voice like still fucked up, but it's kind of like even more so. That was a setback. I had to cancel the whole session. All these people that were giving their free time, because this whole deal is basically done on the goodwill of dozens and dozens of people. You know, it wasn't a paying gig.
It was not a huge money-making endeavor.
No. Well, anyway, long story short, I got shot up. Previously, when I had this problem, guy gave me 5 days of steroids, and I was able to do a gig. So I went to the same doctor and said, you know, he gave me the 5-day course, and then I finished the recording with a fucked up voice, but at least, you know, like I got through it. Subsequently, a friend of mine, Michael Simmons, told me about this voice person. I'd been going to a voice teacher. I went to like a Columbia opera teacher who was the voice person up there and been taking in before the lockdown. So this guy had a new person, Jean Geese. So again, cutting to the chase, I've been working with her on Zoom, and she is also from the south side of Milwaukee, as I am, which is like uncanny. She went to Marquette University, the Catholic University in Milwaukee, and majored in voice. Like she knows her shit, and she's a jazz singer. Anyway, we've been having sessions we've had about 8 of them, and it's done wonders in improving my voice. Basically, I'm getting an amplifier and a microphone and learning to sing through a microphone, like that whole, you know, that not requiring, you know, that's part of the package. And anyway, all sorts of progress are being made. She has tons of great suggestions. I'll do a song to say, what about this? So I'm on the right track. I'm working with someone who's like really helping. So I'm most encouraged.
From the doctor's standpoint, what is the prognosis there? Is this just something that you're going to have to deal with forever, or? The
prognosis is that the general prognosis is incurable. There's workarounds, basically. You know, like, you know, it's like, you know, like what? Okay, it can't be cured. Now what do I do? So there's, you know, on one hand, nothing can be done. On the other hand, there's many things can be done, which I'm working on now, and they're working. They're actually, you know, like it's getting better.
Is it a case where you have good days and bad days?
Oh, definitely. Some days are better than others. Absolutely.
Do you get a sense of how profound an impact this is going to have on your music making going forward?
She suggested this one amp. I think it's 65. I forget what it was, but a certain kind of like really great amp, which weighs 16 pounds. An instrument will go through it, like what I've been playing my juke, my ukulele, national steel tune like a banjo, almost exclusively for a couple of years. I started like getting back into it when we had the 100 songs, because I heard the ones that we already did, and I noticed how great the ones with the juke sounded, and how lackluster the ones with the banjo sounded. So my idea is, okay, work on the juke. So I've been playing it for like 2 years now, and it's getting way better, of course. Both that and my voice can go through this amp, which weighs 16 pounds, so it's carryable, roundable. I find out what settings are good, what, you know, like how to, and I just take it with me when I have a gig. Totally portable, and I'll have a tool that I need to take it forward. Not to mention, I mean, there's all these new approaches to singing that I'm trying out. So it's exciting and shit, you know, and all sorts of other. The voice is weird. Let me tell you one voice story. I was on some weird drug, some kind of like DMT sort of thing, but DMT only lasts for a very short time, and this shit had me in my head for 2 fucking weeks. I mean, really, we're up for 2 fucking weeks.
Ketamine or?
Not I've never had ketamine, so I can't really say.
What was the scenario that you found yourself on this drug that you don't know what it was?
Oh, well, I was a speed freak, man. Me and Max, old lady. I enjoyed copious speed for 12 years. And this is an interesting drug that came our way. Cutting to the chase, suddenly, Joseph Spence, right? Yeah. Melanie, of course. Right. For about 6 hours, I had this voice which was half Joseph Spence and half Melanie. And it was the funniest fucking thing. I was singing and people were like rolling on the fucking floor. I mean, like I wasn't hallucinating that I was doing this weird, amazing thing. I was doing this weird, amazing thing. And I thought, well, how many would I have sounded like I was born in Egypt 700 years ago if I was born in China 2,000 years ago? And you absorb the language when you're in embryo, like you said, like the resonance of the speech that surrounds you gives you a jump starts the way you're gonna sound, basically. And the idea of how many possible voices one can have and how to access them. Like suddenly I had access to, what else do I have access to? Is there any way of like dialing it up? Well, yeah, spirit possession, that'll do the trick.
As I was saying before we started recording, and I was referring to your speaking voice, but this absolutely applies to your singing voice as well, that you, before the video came on, it was clear that it was you because you have an immediately identifiable voice. Was that something that you developed? Is that just naturally your singing style?
Naturally, yeah. Like if you go to recently released was the Wildest Dreams stream. Do you know about that one? Okay. In the 90s, I met these guys from Chicago, had a band called the Dysfunctionals, Rich Kruger, Sky Vern, and they said, could we play with you? Long story short, we formed a friendship. And I did some gigs with them in Chicago where they are and out here. And they released a cassette, like about 400 copies, called "Not in Our Wildest Dreams." And it's been released on my label, streaming, just about a month ago. The label is Don Giovanni. And yeah, again, cutting to the choice. The last thing I didn't know that Rich Kruger had this tape I gave him, which I recorded in 1956. I got a tape recorder for my high school graduation. What do you want? I want a tape. And I made up this parody of Rock Island Line about the bus, the Oklahoma Avenue bus, which is the bus that my main form of transportation between home and high school. And it was like with Rock Island Line, like he lies about what he's got, so he doesn't have to pay the toll. And in this case, like he lied about the transfer being still back. Point is, I heard the fucking thing again. Damn, I had that same fucking, quasi Midwestern hillbilly voice. That guy kind of sang it in the hillbilly style. I mean, I first heard hillbilly music in 1943, Pistol Packin' Mama. That's the 1943 song. And also one called There's a Star Spangled Banner Waving Somewhere, which really, like the melody absolutely like fucking killed me. And then I heard Joe Stafford as Cinderella, G Stump doing Temptation, my main imprint. Joe Stafford, of course, is a popular singer, very good and very well-rounded. With this guy named Red Sovine, they did this parody of Temptation. You came, I was alone, I should have known you were temptation. Like very dramatic, and they do it this Hilly style. And you came, I was alone, I should have known, shucks, I should have known you were TMP-TAY-SHUN. And she channels Mabel Carter. I was like, it's glorious. And the idea of taking these great American ensemble, incredible structures, and doing them hillbilly style was, an epiphany from when I was 10 years old.
Being from Milwaukee, how are you so steeped in hillbilly music?
Well, like I say, 1943, hearing Pistol Packin' Mama, and then subsequently, like in the late 40s, I heard Money, Marbles, and Chalk, an occasional country song. It was still called hillbilly music. They didn't start calling it country and western until 1949, like they used to call rhythm and blues. Used to be called race music. Like it was race music and hillbilly. And in 49, Billboard changed it to rhythm and blues and country and western. So anyway, I was hearing occasional crossover stuff because stuff was crossing over. And then when I discovered folk music in 1956, like that sort of suddenly this whole thing blossomed up. I went to Nashville in 1957 and went to Grand Ole Opry, and of course was exposed to old timey music and finally heard the Smith anthology. At which point it was like, game fucking on.
You heard the old folk music and you were like, that's this kind of music that I want to make.
That's the stuff. The fact that it was so strange and so American, and I felt I had, well, me and thousands of my contemporaries felt that they had to continue doing this music or this sacred flame would go out. And of course, the sacred flame did quite the opposite. Like all of knowledge of traditional music is like, growing. I'd love to see stats on how many people are playing all-time music, like how many, traditional. There aren't any, but like I'm guessing the numbers are probably rising pretty steadily.
Strange is a great way of putting it. I remember the first time that I heard the anthology of folk music, and I was sort of taken aback because I do think that to some degree, at least, obviously I'm a couple of generations removed from it, but the folk music that I heard that was filtered through New York City in the 60s was at least the stuff that kind of became popular and has continued to survive. It does seem to some degree like it was homogenized a little bit or did lose some of that strangeness. The Rounders, and you obviously are a big part of this, kept that sort of that weirdness to it. But, to some degree, it does seem like some of the artists kind of lost that original edge.
It's basically, it's goofiness. The anthology stuff was like goofy as shit. Uncle Dave making the Dixie Dewdrop and the fruit jar drinkers and the skillet flickers, and I'm very big into goofy. I think that the whole concept of goofy is one of the most liberating, mind expanding concepts that there is. Actually, I do believe that goofiness could save the world if it was installed thoroughly enough in humanity.
What's your sense of why that goofiness was lost? Were people just trying to be taken too seriously? Were they trying to be too cool?
Like they were this, they took it seriously. And I mean, you can, what's to stop you from taking it seriously and still being goofy, for Christ's sake, But then, I don't know, I guess some people just have an anti-goofy aspect.
Was there a time, at sort of the height of that success for you in that time period in the 60s and into the 70s, whether it was the band making it onto the Easy Rider soundtrack, where you were being pressured to take some of that goofiness to maybe sing it in a little more straightforward manner?
Not at all. I mean, no one dared to try. But we basically existed at the poverty level, which you could do back then. I mean, the poverty level used to be pretty comfortable in the 60s and up until the 70s. And then suddenly things got more expensive.
Does something like the Easy Rider soundtrack, does that change the math at all for you as a band?
Maybe more people are aware of us, but my take is that the number of people in the U.S. aware of the Rounders is some small fraction of 1%. Is my guess.
Sure, in 2020, but I assume that there was, maybe it was closer to 1% in the 60s or 70s, right?
Not much.
Okay, fair enough. That wasn't a transformative moment for the band.
We got stiffed for all the money, but that's a long story.
How did you end up in California in that time period?
The producer, Fraser Mohawk, who is still, whose name I'm still blocking, Barry. Anyway, Fraser Mohawk was working for Elektra, and he wanted, me and Weber had broken up, but he asked if we could perform at this show with other bands and make some actual money, so we did. And he said he wanted to record the Holy Modal Rounders, and I'd broken up with Weber because of his beyond the pale fuck ups that were going on had broken up, in 1965, which is a long, long story, which you can all learn when the double vinyl album is released early next year of Live in 65 and Indian War Whoop. They were both acquired by Don Giovanni from ESP Records. I've been asked, I can write as big a thing as I want to about it. I wrote this 10,000 word thing about Steve Weber when he died. And I'm working on this memoir, which is being copied now, and I'm taking all the parts I've written about Weber and putting them together. Basically, it's going to be this big book about basically the story of me and Weber between when we met and the time this album, the last album in the set, Indian War was, made. Oh, anyway, so Fraser wanted to record the Rounders, and in the meantime, I'd formed this band called the Moray Eels, which is me and my old lady Antonia, Richard Tyler, and Sam Shepard was the drummer. And I said, well, if you want to record the Rounders, then you have to record the Rounders with my band, the Moray Eels. And the Moray Eels eat the Holy Modal Rounders was, like implying all that. But after making the record, decided to continue playing together, the Moray Eels plus Weber. So obviously it was the Holy Modal Rounders again. So that was, and coincidentally, at the same time, Sam Shepard was asked by Antonioni to go to Southern California to write the script for the Risky Point. So like suddenly, like the stars were obviously aligned.
Yeah, Sam Shepard, I understand, did pretty okay after the Holy Modal Rounders.
Yeah, he did good.
So how did that bring you to California?
That's where the Electric Studio was. And if we wanted to make the album, Electric was in Los Angeles, so we had to go to the Electric Studio in Los Angeles, where Sam also had to go to write the screenplay.
At other points in your life, maybe the idea of just uprooting and moving to California wasn't as big of a deal as it would be at this point.
Well, actually, when I got to New York in '59, I was 21, and I decided that I'd been in California. I went from Milwaukee to Chicago to San Francisco to New York in the space of 1959. I decided, well, I can do whatever I want. So I got there in October. When it gets cold again, I'll go to California and I'll go. And that's what I'll do when I'll and then I'll come back to New York. And I thought that's I can do anything I want. I'm 21, so that's what I'm gonna do. So I hitchhiked. I finally hitchhiked to California all the way across country. Never hitchhiked again. It was interesting but tedious. And after just 2 weeks, I was feeling funny, wrong, weird. I had no idea what was wrong. And another 2 weeks, and I realized I'm homesick. I'm homesick for New York City, and I'd never experienced homesickness. I wasn't homesick when I left Milwaukee. And the longer I was in California, the more I felt that my soul was in New York, and I was being ripped into. And I went back to New York.
How long did you last in California?
We got there in March and came back in October.
Not even a full year.
No.
I was going to ask you sort of to compare what the New York scene and the Los Angeles scene felt like at the time, but that might be unfair because it sounds like you probably didn't really have enough time to really ingratiate yourself into LA.
And sort of my general cultural awareness, goes back decades. When I got to the West Coast in 1960, I was in Berkeley, and I was joined by a friend. Long story short, and we started driving back and forth between Los Angeles and San Francisco a lot. And they were, at the time it was sort of like you have to sort of be on one side. And San Francisco was hipper than Los Angeles. We'd go down to LA, it would be more slick. There'd be more people. But it was interesting. Like, look at the style of California bands in the 1960s. Like the Mamas and Papas are pretty quintessentially Los Angeles, and the Grateful Dead. But the point being that they're both valid. They're both interesting, and having both takes is so much better than having only one. New York's another pole of the whole thing, of course, but I'm very. New York has more stuff going on one hand, on the other hand, there's stuff going on. Like when I got to New York in 1959, I felt that there were almost a dozen people that I had met that I could say anything to them and it would be okay. And they could say anything to me and it would be okay. And priorly, I thought, there isn't anybody like that anywhere. And then suddenly, and my point is that right now, I could go into any American town with 10,000 people or even 5,000 people and find someone that I could say anything to and it would be okay. And they could say anything to me and it would be okay.
You think that's a cultural shift?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is much more openness. I mean, the fact that, they threw Lenny Bruce in jail for saying fuck on stage.
More puritanical ideas of people just being more reserved back then.
Oh, yeah. Well, this has been an ongoing thing, but it's, there's been a profound difference in the last, several decades, of course. And it's basically a good thing.
You mentioned some things that Stephen did that were beyond the pale at that point. What was beyond the pale for you at that point in your life and your career?
We're in Baltimore. We have a gig in Baltimore. And there's a chain called the Hot Shop. Hot Shop's sort of like Howard Johnson's, like a chain of, and it's a weekday and it's lunchtime and the place is crowded and we're in there and Weber proceeds to give hashish to the waitress. Hey, I gotta give this hashish here. And another example of the time, he'd be up for generally speaking, up for 5 days and crash for 3. That was that was his pattern when he was in his speed freak days. And by early 1965, he went through this period in which he was up for more like 5 days and then crashed for 3. And while he was up, every sentence he said had absolutely nothing to do with the sentence before or the sentence that was to come. I mean, actually, I in retrospect, I would kill for a recording, But and finally, he started missing gigs, and when he blew up the third gig, that was the last straw. That was in July of '65.
I mean, you alluded to your own speed days, but it never got that bad for you.
Define bad.
His behavior being beyond the pale. Was there anything that you sort of did yourself or saw in yourself that would have been beyond the pale for you?
Well, basically, me and Antonio would just do music for days and days. Or else if there's a gig, I do the gig I quit taking it in '75. And so my last speed gigs were with the Unholy Modal Rounders. Not all of them, but frequently I'd be speeding during a gig.
Did you ever find drugs to be beneficial for the creative process or for the music making process?
Yeah, I mean, I've been smoking pot since I tried it in '58, but nothing happened. And then I smoked a lot of it when I got to New York in '59, but I never got high. I got high once on a hash. And I was in California. When I was in California after New York, one day I smoked some pot and suddenly the refrigerator was very funny. And at which point, so I still like to smoke pot before playing music. It's more fun. I like to do it longer. And it's interesting. One day, Walker Shepard, Sam's kid. I'm in a record with him and Eli Smith, which is just needing one vocal track to finish. Anyway, so he's at the house and we're playing music and double banjo stuff, and it's kind of let's smoke some pot. And so we and bing, suddenly it was interesting and something was happening. I mean, the stuff works, basically.
It gets back to that idea we were talking about earlier about the weird side, about the goofy side. It sounds like you're able to tap into the goofy side more on pot.
Actually, I come to think that is true. That is true. Absolutely.
You teamed up again with Steven, you know, a few other times over the years. What's your sense of what kept bringing the two of you together in spite of the fact that obviously there was some personal tension there?
He moved back to the East Coast in 96, I think it was, 96 or 7, after being basically kicked out of Oregon, which is a long, funny story.
Impressive, yeah.
You know, and I was still pissed at him, but oh man, people kept saying that they want to hear us. Now we can hear. We always wanted to hear you guys. Now we can hear you guys, and so well, I should do a gig with them. Yeah, I mean that would be wrong not to. But it was fun. It was enjoyable. We had a good time playing. So that's in the late 90s, and we continued. The only problem was that more of his brain was gone, and he couldn't work out new songs. He couldn't even remember some of the old 3-chord songs that we used to play, and he couldn't even remember a lot of songs that he actually written.
When you say part of his brain is gone, you mean is that the drugs?
Alcohol, basically. Yeah, he quit taking speed for the most part by the early 70s. More junk and booze.
Do you feel that as far as having a collaborator, that was a special and kind of singular collaboration for you over the course of your career? Is that part of what kept bringing you back together?
It was magical at first. I mean, the magic lasted from like when we met. Like the first time, besides like this is my long lost brother that I never knew I had. Like first it was like you don't think the thought thinks you. It's just like there. And then the first time we played together, it was like absolutely in the fucking pocket. And it was just amazing and wonderful until we're talking May 63, when the Beatles hit, which is right after Kennedy got shot in the winter and early 64. Weber realized that what we were doing had some kind of chance of success. And this absolutely jolted him. And he started talking. Well, what he started doing was bitching on stage about he's sick of these old songs. I can play something new. I can't stand these old songs. And then, I mean, working on a song was play it 3 times in a row. Bingo, there you go, you know. And so I would, okay, the gig's over. Let's work out this song. He just goes stomping off. That was sort of the way it started to fall apart. We had about 7 months that were absolutely miraculous and ecstatic, and like it was like suddenly my life was 3 times larger than it had been previously.
The good and successful time with him only lasted about 7 months?
Well, the purely good time. Like after it was basically it was ups and downs after that.
That's got to be tough when somebody passes like that, somebody who you were obviously close with, you know, creatively and personally, and it had been like 17 years since the last time you spoke.
Yeah. So it was. I mean, in a way, he was already dead. My feelings are more like, wow, he really lasted a long time.
You never made music with the explicit intent of whether or not it was going to be good for your career.
Well, I mean, it had nothing to do with what we actually played. We played the same kind of the only kind of music that we could play, which is like, I mean, like how on earth could the Holy Modal Rounders sell out? I mean,
you have subsequently taken music lessons, right? I mean, you are even though you had a you know successful music career in its own right, it sounds like you're still actively trying to push yourself.
Yeah, always. I mean, there's always stuff that I want to do that I can't yet. Like I want to be able to compose in the early 60s rhythm and blues style, like the way rhythm and blues sounded between about 1960 and about 65, 6. That whole period just completely enthralls me.
Wilson Pickett, kind of.
Oh, let's see. Well, Smokey Robinson.
Okay, like Motown style.
Well, like Motown style, like Stax style, like style, like Chicago You know,
I'd say almost objectively, like just the best music probably that's ever been created.
I like the way you do the things you do. I really got to hold on.
Holland Dozer Holland.
Yeah, I mean, it just, and I like one of the reasons for 100 songs was I wanted to study all these different period styles with the idea of being able to work in that style, you know, to do one like that. And I'm so far away. Like one of the big mind blower on the album on the set is "Girls Talk." Dave Edmunds is actually I didn't know it was an Elvis Costello song.
A rock pile song?
Yeah, when I heard the original Costello version, you know, I'm gonna get a lozenge and found.
Yeah, Dave Edmunds I always considered to be, I mean, obviously, you know, he was Stiff Records and, you know, a contemporary of Elvis Costello and Nick Lowe, but he was also very much kind of in that rockabilly style.
And he actually altered the song. I mean, like the intro in a different key than the song is, and then the instrumental break going into the same different key. He changed the words, and his version was much better than Elvis Costello's. And again, cutting to the choice, I've been working on this song for months and months and months to be able to find it. Took me months to be able to do it without having to follow it because it's sort of complicated. So I finally internalized that, and like I would kill to be able to make something along those lines. I'm also I would love to be able to write in the 1930s 40s Great American Songbook style.
Tin Pan Alley.
Well, Tin Pan Alley was basically invented by the blacks and the Jews. Before there was a Tin Pan Alley, which is in the sort of mid-20s. It was on 14th Street.
This is a project that you were working on for a long time, and that you worked in so many different genres to create. What did you learn in terms of songwriting? I mean, how useful of a tool was that for you ultimately?
I'm slowly getting better at composing, and I'm a slow learner, but infinitely patient. I'm good at perseverance. I mean, there's a song I thought of in the 1970s, and didn't write it until like 4 or 5 years ago.
It was floating around in your head for that long?
Well, it was called "Do It in the Graveyard." It was a song about fucking in a graveyard, basically.
It sounds like a Cramps song.
But I finally got it about 5 years ago. Like the song finally came to me, and it was like All the Time in the World from the Me and Jeffrey second album. I had that song for years, and I showed it to Jeffrey, and he came up with a B part, which totally transformed it. And then we finished it together. And there was but that song and Duke and the Beatniks was a song that I thought about for years and years and years again before I finally managed to nail it.
We're talking about Jeffrey Lewis. Where does he rank in the many collaborators you've had over the years?
No question. Number one.
What is it about him that you work so well with?
We met in 2004. He kept talking about we should play together in England, which we did in 2012. We should record something together, like a single, to because you can, besides selling your old merch, they want to buy something by the people that are playing. So I have a couple of songs actually. I have a couple of songs too. Let's get together. Get your songs and we get together tomorrow night. So we got together tomorrow night. He brought a bass player, and we started working on these songs. We had like about 20 of them, songs besides like a redo of one of my songs. So one was actually a song that had been recorded previously, but none of the others were. And for 3 days we went over these songs, and on the 4th day we recorded all the songs, and on the 5th day we added all the overdubs, And then on day 6, he and when we on day 6 he mixed and mastered it, a whole album, from not even thinking of an album existing to here's an album all done in 6 days flat, and it was effortless. Like, his organizational skills are so brilliant, as well as being effortless and transparent, that it was just, the whole process was like falling off a log. So we get to England, and we do the first gig, and we have like 2 weeks, a gig a night, and it's England, so they're all like very drivable too. And he's talking about how the gig went, and this song was neat, and in this song, what if we basically and I thought this was ongoing. Like his default setting is, how can this be better? And the idea of that being a way to operate for a person to be had never occurred to me. Like this like looking at everything that you're doing, and he was concerned about how solitary art making is, as opposed to like music, and what can be done about that. So he figured, okay, Wednesdays, people will come over and we'll draw together, and bring beer and snacks, and so it's a way of making solitary art a social one, and it's a way of forcing him to work on his cartoons for a 4-hour stretch between 8 and 12 once a week, because he always has more things he has to do than he has time for. And it forces him to clean his house every week. And he's bad at names, so he'd practice like someone come in, John, hi, John, this is Amy. And like every time someone would come in, he would like say their names, and then he would say the names of everybody that was already there forwards and backwards, because he wasn't good at names and wanted to work on that. Like right now he's on lockdown, of course, and he has this big list of things that he's doing. He has like all these projects, and so he spends an hour on each one.
He does a lot of Facebook videos I've seen.
And another thing he's doing, like, people are having trouble exercising on lockdown and shit, and the gyms are, of course, all closed. So he's dancing for a half hour every day. Just puts on a random mixtape and just like dances for 30. Like I was actually, I had the same idea, and I was doing this for about a month in the middle of the summer. But it's something that I want to get into again. I mean, it just makes so much sense to, just to dance every day. I have another friend that's been tap dances every day and has bone density problems. Her bones are being like her doctor says her bones are getting like noticeably stronger since she's dancing every day. I mean, he's a very sane, but besides, he's really, really nice. Like a truly not a nasty bone in his body kind of guy. I mean, he's just an exemplary human being. And like I say, like I've never worked with anyone that can take a song that I need help on it and make it like more than I dreamed, or more than I hope to dream the song could be by the time we work together.
You finished this huge project that you've been working on for a long time, and obviously you're dealing with some ongoing voice issues. Did you ever have the thought of retiring or stopping or slowing down, or is it clear that you're just going to keep doing this?
Never. I'm just so far from being able to accomplish what I would like to accomplish.
Do you have an idea of what that is? Do you have a sense of what it is that would feel finite for you?
Be able to compose in more varied and complicated structures, as well as like sort of kid bashing them. Like one thing I'm doing right now, for instance, is doo-wop songs like rhythm and blues circa mid-50s to 1960, about taking those songs and treating them like contemporary cars. Like here's this 1959 model, and then customizing it, so to speak, by tweaking. One way is to change the word or to add words. Another way is to alter the structures, like change the chords, change a chord here and there, or add like a beat part, like in a song, Church Bells May Ring by the Willows, 1956. And in the standard, the like C, A minor, F, G, heart and soul progression. I put on a weird bridge on it, for instance, besides adding words, like just because songs of the period, doo-wop songs were pretty
straightforward
and simple. Yeah. And bending them and tweaking them is really a fun thing to do. And I'm working on long ago from the 1830s and working on my favorite shape note song, All Is Well, only doing it in a more rhythm and bluesy style as opposed to the 1880s. I'm working on a bunch of great American songbook songs like Flamingo, 1940, Duke Ellington, and I'm working on about 35 songs basically right now.
You've been productive during the quarantine.
Yeah.
And you found that you've been able to, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you're still talking to Jeffrey, but, he's obviously doing his own thing. You find that you're able to continue to be productive, even though you're very much solo right now?
Yeah, I'm trying to put out videos, and I'm going to start recording with my daughter. Her and her husband will be moving in with us in early next year. We're talking about making videos together as well. And Jeffrey and I have a double album, which was all done. Trying to decide how to. It'll probably be released streaming, and we have to do the liner notes for that. We always spend like basically we each write about the individual songs. Well, first we each write about the album, then we each write about the individual songs, and sometimes we'll answer what the person's answering. Like go back and forth. And it's a very delightful, interesting process.
It sounds like you're having as much fun as you ever had.
Basically, I try.